Like any business, growing a law firm is really just about knowing your numbers and knowing how many leads you need and how much you can spend on those leads so that you can grow your law firm, right? So there's actually a very easy formula to figure out how many leads you need and how much you can afford to spend per lead. A lot of times a marketing company will say, hey, what's your marketing budget? And the answer is, I don't know. When you know how many leads you need and how much you can actually afford to spend on these leads, then you can give intelligent answers and actually start making progress toward the goal that you actually have. I'm going to show you in this video how you can calculate how many leads you need to hit your goals and then how much you can afford to spend on each of those leads. So there's a few things that you do need to know before you're going into this, and you might want to watch this video a couple of times so that you can kind of go through and do these calculations with me, right? But the first thing you need to know, what is your goal? Right? Like, how much revenue are you trying to bring in? You need to know what is your goal. Now, the second thing is you need to know your average case value. And this is important because we're going to divide your goal by your average case value. And that's going to tell you how many cases you actually need to hit your goal, right? So then what we're going to do is we're going to take that number and we are going to divide it by your closing percentage. So if you take your goal and you divide that by your average case value, and then you divide that number by your closing percentage, you are going to figure out what we call your lead abundance number. This is how many leads your law firm needs to hit your goals, right? So let's do for instance, right? Let's say your goal is $10 million. You're trying to bring in $10 million this year for your law firm, and your average case value is $15,000. Now let's say your closing percentage is 45%. So we're going to do 0.45. What that means, if you take 10 million divided by 15,000 and then divide that number by 45%, you end up with 1,481 leads. So now we know that if you want to make $10 million this year for your law firm, and your average case value is $15,000 per case, and you close at a rate of 45%, then you need to bring in 1,481 leads. Now that we know that we need 1,481 leads, how do we figure out how much we can actually afford to spend on these leads? That's what I'm going to show you right now. Now, we've done a lot of research, and there's a rule called the 20-40-10 rule. And if you want to grow a law firm, if you want to scale your law firm, then it's very important that you follow the 20-40-10 rule. Now, what is the 20-40-10 rule? Well, the 20-40-10 rule is very simple. 20% of your goal should be your budget for marketing. So what that means is that if you have a $10 million goal, you should be prepared to spend $2 million or 20% of $10 million on your marketing. So we're going to stick with the $10 million mark. That means that you should spend $2 million on marketing. Remember, we're having some pretty big goals here, $10 million, right? 40%. What is the 40%? Well, the 40% is the amount of money that you should spend on payroll, right? If you have a $10 million law firm, you probably have some people that are going to have to help you run that law firm. You're going to need attorneys, you're going to need support staff, you're going to need different things like that, right? So 40% is about $4 million that you're going to have in people, right? And then 10% is the amount of money, so about $1 million. That's the amount that you should be spending on yourself and on your team for personal development, right? Now, let's go focus on this 20% number, right? So if we are trying to make $10 million, then what does that mean? That means that we need to spend 20% of that on marketing, or $2 million. So here's what we need to do. The formula looks like this. It's your goal times 0.2. That means that your goal times 20% of your goal, right? And that is going to be divided by your lead abundance number, which we just found in the last step. Now that is going to give you your target cost per lead. That means that if you want to make $10 million, you multiply that goal, 10 million, let me just do this down here, right? So let's say, using our real world example, let's say you want to make $10 million. So we're going to go back to $10 million, and we're going to multiply this by 20%, or 0.2, right? Then we're going to divide that by our lead abundance number, which in this case was 1,481. $10 million is our goal, times 20%, which is $2 million, divided by 1,481. This is our lead abundance number. And that number equals $1,350. That means that in this scenario, we can afford to spend up to $1,350 per lead. Right? Now, that doesn't mean that we will spend $1,350 per lead or that we should spend $1,350 per lead. That means that we can afford to spend $1,350 per lead and still hit our target goal. Now, there's some things that you can do once you actually understand these numbers. There's some things that you can play with that will actually make this better. So one of the easiest things is, let's go back to this example here. Your goal is your goal, right? So don't change your goal. Your average case value. What if you could figure out a way to increase your average case value? There's lots of different ways that you can increase your average case value that I'm not going to go into this video, right? But what if you could increase your average case value? Well, automatically that's going to make your hitting your goal a lot easier, and it's going to make your lead abundance number go down, because the more money you make per case, the fewer cases that you need. What about your closing percentage? What if you could double your closing percentage or just increase it by 15 or 20% or something like that? Then that would also make the number of leads that you need go down. So if you can increase your average case value, if you can increase your closing percentage, then all of a sudden this the lead abundance number that is required goes down and down and down. And then when you required less leads, that means that you can actually afford to spend more per lead.